Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to the Bad League, Bad Pods podcast. I am your co-host, Zach Fuller, with my co-host, Ben Dunn. And today we're joined by a very special guest, Judd King.
Howdy.
Judd, how's it going?
Good. Still trying to recover from last night, but I think we're doing good.
Yeah, it was
It
a
happens.
tiring race. Ben, how are we doing this morning?
I'm good, man. Everything's good. I'm not really recovering too much because I had a pretty decent night. So, I'm feeling okay. Things are good.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, but after the race last night, I was just completely tired. Like
Yeah.
more so than usual. I don't know if I was like clenching my arms a lot for the corners at Auto Club or what it was, but I was like physically and mentally exhausted. It was very weird.
I mean,
Um,
it was a bit of a battle. It was a racy race, man.
yeah,
It was a lot of fun. We'll get into that here in a second.
yeah. So my morning has been slightly frantic. Last night I spilled the smallest amount of beer on my keyboard and it stopped working. So
Nice.
I thought I was gonna have to go to the store and buy a new one, but I just plugged it in and it's working now. So um,
So far, so good, huh? We'll
there's
see.
that.
We'll see how that holds up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see. It was not working at all last night, but now it's good. So I don't know. Um, so yeah, you want to get into Auto Club?
Absolutely. Let's start it off how we have been starting it off
Yeah,
lately. Just kind of how was your guys' race? I'll let you guys go first, and I'll go ahead and wrap up the end. We'll start with Judd here, see what he thinks about how his evening went.
sounds good.
Uh, I thought it went okay, but right from the rag, I guess I was on the wrong strategy, saving too much tire and then saved a set later, and that never really needed to happen because we went green at the end. But we recovered to a nice sixth place finish, racing there with you, Ben, at the end. But
Yep. Yep.
yeah,
Seventh. Austin got sixth.
oh yeah, seventh. Sorry, for some reason I keep thinking that was for a top five, but it was.
Well, if we could just remove Bloom from the situation, we'd be good.
Well,
No.
Yeah.
yeah, my race was extremely eventful. Um, didn't qualify very well. I think I started. Do you have the results pulled up, Ben?
He
I think
started seventh.
yeah, started seventh. Um, qualifying on a track like this usually is not one of my strong suits, but um, started seventh and then started saving tire at the beginning, and probably 11 or 12 laps in, I was getting up to those guys who kind of pushed at the beginning, and then I had two kind of notable incidents in the race. The first one was with Roten, where I was on the inside and he was on the outside, and it was just a miscommunication off of four, kind of like a Michigan merge situation, if you will. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of left like a lane and a half, and he was like a half lane to a lane off the wall. So um, I ended up basically right rearing myself um, into the wall there. So I had to take a fast repair and went to the back of the pack, and then started making my way back up through the pack, and then I'm battling Austin, and he's like he was basically pinching me on the entry into turn one, and I was following the cars in front of us to up to the wall to get a good entry to the corner, but he was again a lane off the wall, and so I ended up hooking him like into the inside. Um, but I sent him a video and like apologized after. So, but I think he understood like what happened there. So, um, that's good. But then after that, um, luckily the strategy played out a little bit better for me this week than it did last week, and ended up with a third, which I think is about as best as I could do. I didn't really have the speed to go up there and pass Drucker or Hoffman, so yeah, third place, not too bad.
Yeah, those guys certainly had the speed. Back here for me, it was a good eighth place finish after kind of just a uneventful race for me. Started 12th. Qualifying is just not my strong suit on any track. Doesn't depend on the track. I don't know what it is. I don't know. But I did manage to start 12th, and I kind of just hung out for a lot of the race. Did some tire saving. That would really kind of start to pay off on the runs, but not as much as I wanted. I think I really need to just kind of work on getting my tire saving and having some speed at the same time, because I hung out in that 12th, 13th range, most of the race. Once we got on that last pit stop, I decided this is the one run where I'm gonna get after it. I hadn't really been aggressive on my runs and my tires at all during the race. I was quite conservative. So at the last run, I said, you know what, we're going for it. I had like 36 seconds of damage to repair in the pits. I think I pit from 13th or 14th and said, you know what, if I'm only going to drop back to 16th, let's just do it. Let's get the damage
Yeah.
fixed and let's get out there and get after it. And I was able to drive. I believe I restarted 14th and was able to get myself up to eighth by the end of the race. So I was very happy with that. I got Nick on a last lap pass. He kind of tried to send it into the corner, I think on three on the last lap, and got himself into the wall. At first, I thought he was trying to chastain the turn. I couldn't figure out what was going on, but I believe he just entered a little hot and a little close to the wall,
Mm.
trying to get a big run on me heading to the line, and he just gave up that spot. So I was able to sneak in there and get an eighth. But a lot of really good racing. We'll kind of just recap the race as a whole, just to talk about a couple things here. So we had 21 lead changes with 8 different leaders, and we managed to only have 4 cautions, which totaled up 12 laps. So a pretty somewhat eventful night. Lots of changing up front. Dylan did a good job to kind of save his tires and get himself
Yeah.
in a good spot. And I think just a really good race all the way around. I think there was a lot of racing. I know personally I battled with a lot of people and did a lot of back and forths and side by side with people for multiple laps, crisscrossing, high lane, low lane. Both all lanes were kind of working, which was really nice.
Yeah.
I really felt hooked up on the top. I was able to get up there between that top seam and the wall and really just get after it. I think there was a lot of chances or a lot of times where I had situations where I came off 2 or came off 4, and the person inside of me is shocked to hear that there's a car flying by them
Yeah.
on the outside. And those runs were huge if you were able to nail that top line.
Yeah, turn one, the high line was super powerful, especially once we got like, 10 or 15 laps on the tires. Turn one was so good on the top. And then what I was really liking to do was getting a run off the top, and then you'd have such a run you could get side by side with the guy down the backstretch. And I felt like the bottom was kind of OP in 3 and 4. I don't know how y'all felt about that, but like I felt like you could make moves on the bottom in 3 and 4 so good. So you get a run off of turn 1 and 2, get to the inside, and then kind of just like a little bit of a slide job down there in 3 and 4. But yeah, just to touch on Dylan real quick, I was obviously in third watching them battle for the lead, and he straight up went. He just went up there and like took the lead from Jack. Um, it was quite the impressive move to see him go up there and take the lead and pretty much take the win. And then Jack was pushing really hard to get back by him and kind of burned his stuff up. But a hell of a start from Jack this season. He's leading the points. I know we'll get into that in a minute. Judd, did you have anything else you wanted to call out from this one?
No, I think this is probably the best track I've seen the oval refresh do anything where you could run top to bottom and
Oh, yeah, good point.
all
Mhm.
that. This first track I've noticed it run that well. So
Yeah.
It,
Uh,
it was also
One more shout out. I just remembered from the results. BC, hell of a race up there in
absolutely.
fourth. I mean, that was maybe the best race I've seen him run like on one of these tracks. I mean, and I had
Yeah.
to really really work to get by him there in the closing stages for fourth. So well done.
I think my one shout out was going to go to Cody. Cody ran a really great race. I know
Oh
he
yeah,
finished last and definitely probably wasn't happy with it. But he ran a really good race. He was up front a lot. He led 14 laps. He was just really, really strong.
yeah.
My shout out for sure goes out to him for, like I said, the finish is not what he wanted, but he ran a really, really good race. If we're looking at the driver rating, I still don't know what it means, but I like it. He was our fifth best driver out there last night. Average running position at 2.9. So I mean, he hung out up front for most of the race. I know that he got in a little incident with Roten later in the race
Mm,
where they were kind of. I went back and looked at it. They were entering the corner, and it looks like Roten just went to kind of dive to that low lane or a lane lower than where he was, and Cody was looking to enter a little higher, and Roten just kind of got right into him, and Cody went up into the wall. So an unfortunate ending to a great race for him. I know he's probably disappointed in that, but really good stuff to see out of him. So far this season,
and
and
Roden
it,
as well.
yeah, yeah,
Roden,
absolutely, yeah. Roten had a good race. Again, another result he probably isn't too
yeah.
happy with, but
Both of those guys showing a lot of speed here early in the season.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that that incident happened after Cody's pit lane entry incident.
oh,
That's
that's
right.
true. I forgot he had a speed. He had a spin and then a speed. So he just had a lot of breaks happen, and then the icing on the cake was the incident that I believe essentially just took him out of the race at the end there. So,
Yep.
But I do want to
um,
shout out that he did come back out after all that and
yes,
did finish the
absolutely.
race.
Yeah, he finished a nice 15 laps down, unfortunately for him. But yeah, getting up there, leading some laps, mixing it up front. We've seen that from him a few times in the past. I know he's very strong in the next gen seasons that we did,
Yep.
and he seems to be pretty strong in this car as well. So a good start for him, other than a crappy finish. Didn't score any points last night, but a good start for him.
Indeed. And speaking of points, let's go ahead and look at those. So I'm actually going to bring them up on the YouTube
Yeah,
portion
I'll
of
fill in
this.
while you kind of do that. I'll fill in with our biggest our gainers and losers that we kind of went over last week.
Yep.
This week we had a lot more movement on the leaderboard. So Fuller, you managed to jump 5 spots with your third place finish last night, which was
Sir.
massive. Dylan with his win jumped up 8 spots in the points, which was
Incredible.
absolutely huge. Christian missed the race, so he lost 7, and Cody lost 7 spots as well. So some big winners and losers from last night. Unfortunately for Cody, like I said, that finish did not help him at all. He would have scored really well and probably hung on to a lot of those spots, but he falls back to 13th in points. And Jack still leads the way with 83 points. Got a nice little lead over Dylan Perry.
Yeah, almost a race victory ahead of Dylan Perry as well for Jack. But other than the gap between first and second, everybody is within a single digit of each other. Which I mean, after three
Yeah.
races, maybe you could say that's expected, but um, I think that's really cool. I think we've had a very balanced season, everybody really, because some people have had like one or two good finishes and kind of a crappy one. So um, it's clearly balanced out pretty nicely.
And a big thing I noticed too last night that I thought was pretty cool was that if you look from second place all the way down to 11th place, we're that whole spread is 20 points.
Yeah,
So there's Dylan in second at 56, Judd in 11th at 36. So there's 20 points. That's it. And like you said, everybody's single digit. Travis and Brandon are tied, and everyone in that same gap is the biggest point gap is Roten to Fuller, which is 5.
yeah,
Other than that, it's a lot of 3s and 2s and 1s, which is pretty miraculous stuff. Pretty tight start to the season for sure.
yeah. And Dylan Perry kind of didn't get a great finish last night, but if he'd finished a little bit better, that battle for the lead would be even tighter. So um, I'm interested to see like we obviously don't we haven't seen Perry race that much. I'm interested to see where he's going to end up at the end of the season. Also, Roten after this strong start, like how high up can he get by the end of it?
hmm
That'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, they're both. He's hanging on there. Travis is still up there, tied with Brandon for sixth in points. So, our guys who had a great start to the year at Daytona are still hanging in there and still run strong, which we love to see. So, it'll be sure interesting as we transition into next week, where we head to our first short track of the season,
Oh yes.
and it is none other than the paperclip itself, Martinsville Speedway. How are you guys feeling heading into next week?
Depends on where I qualify, I think. With all these CRS short track races, it seems like if you start up front, you kind of stay there. But
Yeah.
um, I don't know. I feel good. I like the short tracks usually. So if we can put down a good lap, I think we can stay up front, and hopefully the pit strategy go their way for once.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
it'll be interesting to see pit strategy and whatnot at Martinsville.
we've done 3 races at Martinsville in the league, 3 different cars, and over those 3 races, there's been 51 cautions. So that's 17 per race. Um, and so 571 laps complete, 51 cautions, almost 10% of the race has been under caution. However, only one of them was 150 laps, and that one still had 16 cautions. So this is probably going
Yeah.
to be a bit of chaos. And yeah, it seems like the strategy at these has been to pit as least as you possibly can and keep your
Yeah.
track position. So, yeah, like Judd said, the track position is going to be super important. Even though this is not like an aero situation or anything in this car in Martinsville, track position is super important. And the last time we were here in the Gen 6, Joe pretty much pitted with like I want to say 70 or 80 to go and just stayed out front and nobody could get around him. So um, yeah, it's gonna be. I'm interested to see if maybe we can keep it a little bit cleaner this time. I feel like we've gotten better. Also, this car is, you know, we shouldn't be spinning out on our own as much in this car. I feel like that kind of has been the issue, like with the Gen 6 and the next gen. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's so just to highlight the last time we were here in this specific car, it was I believe season 4.
yep,
We raced in the Xfinity car at Martinsville, and I believe as a
2021.
league that yeah, I believe as a league that may have been our first time to Martinsville. Now we did have
Yes.
21 cautions for 100 laps, so that's when we talk about our our infamous CRS short tracks. Not the greatest history with those. We started that race 21 cars, so that also could have played a lot into it. A lot of us weren't as good as we are now, so I'm very excited to see, how the racing has how we all have kind of evolved as drivers and what that will do for the racing at Martinsville. I think
Hmm.
it's going to be interesting. Owen won our race the last time we were here. He led 84 laps. The last time we were here in this car specifically, sorry
Yeah.
about that. He led 84 laps. That one was a 200 lap race. Looks like we went into some overtime because we ran 206.
Yep.
Uh, so Owen and Joe kind of led the way. So with what you had said about the Gen Sixes and what I'm seeing here from the Xfinities, Joe is just good at Martinsville. Who
Yeah.
knows if he'll come out and race with next week? He said he's going to do some part-time starts. We don't know when those are, and if next week is one, I expect Joe to run a pretty good race for sure because he always seems to be pretty good at Martinsville.
Yeah, I think that checks out because Joe's pretty good on the road courses. I feel like Martinsville, when I'm by myself, is probably one of my better ovals as well. Um, because it's those corners are like road course corners. I feel like at short tracks. So
Yeah.
Joe is definitely going to be one to watch if he comes out.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a fun race. I look forward to, short track battling with some of the people who I've been battling with already so far this season at Chicago and Auto Club. It'll be a lot different, I think, with the the mentality of short track racing and like you said, the idea that track position can be so important here. I think pit strategy is going to be interesting. I think 4 sets of tires is plenty here, but it's going to be a matter of how do you use them because Martinsville is definitely a track where new tires can really help you if used
Yeah.
properly and timed properly. So I think that's going to be interesting to see how people manage that. If we do have a lot of cautions, or if we don't have a lot of cautions, I don't expect any green flag pit stops. But hey, you
No
never
way.
know.
No way.
You know.
There's no way.
If we do, I'll buy a lotto ticket.
Yeah, there we
There it
go.
is. You heard it here first, guys. Judd's buying a lottery ticket if we have green flag pit stop at Martinsville. So I mean, I honestly think like we would have to go green to checkers uh, without a single caution to even have a green flag pit stop come into play for fuel. Because I think fuel, you probably get a lot of laps. I don't know what the number is, but you can probably
I
get a
w-
lot of laps
I
on
would
tank in
assume the
Martinsville.
fuel tank goes past 150 laps.
If not, it's definitely close.
I believe it's like right at that number.
Okay.
Yeah. So that I mean,
The question
so
would
on
be,
the
do the
rare
tires
chance that
last?
yeah, that's true too. And the rare chance that we do stay green somehow for 150 laps, it could be interesting. I don't know.
Well, with the way
We'll
these
see.
races have been playing out, like I was talking about it last night, these have just become so hard to predict how they're going to go. Like we were sitting on here talking about, oh, there's going to be long green flag runs at Chicago, and I think the longest one we had was 30 laps. And then we go
Yeah,
to Auto Club, and there is a long green flag one run with green flag pit stops, but then there's also four cautions. Like ever since last season, really, I guess part of it is probably having the race control, which is a great thing. Like um,
yeah,
calling those cautions out, like where you're spinning through the infield and there's no cautions. Like in real life, that would be a caution. Maybe it's that, or I don't know what it is, but um,
yeah.
they've just
And
become so unpredictable.
speaking of that, he's gonna have his hands full next week. But I privately
Yeah,
gave a shout to Aaron for a great job last night, and I'll publicly do it on here. He did I think race control was on it last night.
I agree.
It was good. Cautions were called, when they needed to be. Everything seemed to be managed really well from that aspect of things. So big shout out to Aaron for that. I gave him, like I said, I gave him one last night. I'll give him another one here because I think it was a great race for race control last night. Managed really well by him to kind of keep things under control. So that, like I said, he'll have his hands full next week, but it's a smaller track. It should be a lot easier to see a lot of things.
Yeah,
Um, but there's always some of these weird issues with like passing under yellow and someone's damaged and they don't communicate fast enough. They need an EOL. So like, there probably be a little some of that, but things have been fairly clean. Especially last night, it was managed really well.
yeah, definitely. Can we think of any beefs that might be settled at Martinsville? Because this is definitely a
Oh,
place where you would settle that. I mean, I can't think of any off the
no,
top of my
looking
head from
looking
this
at our
season.
season standings, yeah, looking, I mean, I think the 22 might not might be a little harder on the 36's bumper. If
Mm,
if the 36 happens to be in front of him, just a little blowover from Auto Club, but I don't see anything really really bad that's going to go there with that. I can't think of any other major beefs going on here, so I think we'll be okay.
I think the problem for that is I don't know if we've had enough races to have someone on another person's nerves yet.
That's true.
yeah,
That's true. You might have one incident here or there, but nothing, you know, nothing crazy.
this might be a place where some beef starts.
That's true.
Um,
That's true.
Yeah, I think that's more likely.
yeah, and
Yeah,
then
it's
after
yeah, and
this,
and that'll be interesting heading into Vegas because
yeah,
then we're back to speed, we're back to a mile and a half, we're back to some tight, fast racing. So any beefs that do start at Martinsville could get interesting headed into Vegas in the following week.
definitely
And one
will.
more thing I want to
Oh, go ahead, Judd.
one more thing I want to
No,
do before we move from this is go back to race control. Do you think people are driving maybe a little differently now that we have race control? We can get cautions called that maybe iRacing wouldn't have called.
I think there's a little bit of that. I think a lot also that kind of plays into some of these cautions is I said it before in a week past, and I'll say it again that I think we're just better um, than we have been in the past, and people are a little more confident with making moves and not afraid to make moves they may have been a little hesitant on in the past. And sometimes that just kind of results in a natural, racing incident, right? So
Yeah,
I don't think I don't think I don't think these cautions we're seeing are drivers going over their heads like they used to be. I think in seasons past we had a lot of people driving over their heads and maybe going for things they shouldn't.
like self
And
spins too.
now we've all kind of learned. We all know each other well enough that we know who's going to do what and what to expect when you're racing against someone. So I think that's a big thing too. Is that I think just the nature of us getting better and being more competitive has just kind of brought on some more cautions, which I'm not going to complain about. It makes things interesting, but
Definitely.
and it's a matter of good driving leading to racing incidents and aggressive driving rather than overly aggressive or driving over your head, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, well, through three races, we have three winners, and I think going into Martinsville, we could probably have a fourth there for the fourth race of the season. So it's been a good one so far. Um, Shout out as well to Drucker getting the pole here, second consecutive pole on the season for Auto Club. So um, yeah, I'm excited for Martinsville. I don't really have anything else on that. I don't think.
Yeah, I think that's about that. I think when it comes to the CRS stuff, I think we've covered essentially all we need, and we can move on to the real life racing that happened this weekend. Little race took place this week.
Yeah, there was a small race that meant a little bit to some people over the weekend, the Daytona 500. Yeah, what do you guys think of the whole weekend?
I liked it. Of course, it's the first points race of the year, so I always get excited for
Yeah,
Daytona, like 99.999% of everyone else. So, and of course, I mean, racing's usually pretty good, even with a little hiccup here or there. But I I was really excited. I was ready to go.
yeah.
I agree. I always you always get excited for Daytona, and I think it delivered. I think it was a long Sunday with the rain, which we'll talk about later,
Definitely.
but it was good. We'll dive into. We'll start on Thursday here in a minute, and then move our way into Sunday. But really, I just want to know real quick, what was your guys' favorite race of the weekend of the four that took place?
So I unfortunately didn't get to see the ARCA race, but I figured I was playing disc golf,
Good.
so I didn't really feel like
You
I
didn't
was
miss much.
missing. Yeah, I mean, it's ARCA at Daytona. My favorite of
Shout out to Bean Nation though, Bean Nation for life.
yeah, that's good.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Of the three that I watched, I felt like I enjoyed the Cup race the most, honestly, which is weird because I don't typically love the way the super speedways are in this current era, but I thought it was a great race. I said it to somebody, I can't remember who, but I felt like this was probably the best super speedway race of the next gen era. Um, what about you guys?
Yeah, for me it was definitely Sunday as well. I missed the Xfinity race. I was out that night, but kind of keeping an eye on my phone. It didn't seem like there was anything too crazy that I missed.
Well,
Um, but uh, but Sunday was good. It was eventually once we got things going. I think Sunday was definitely very enjoyable for me. It was a good race, and a little chaotic at the end there.
yeah,
A little upsetting as an Austin Cindric fan, but it happens.
For me, it was the Xfinity race on Saturday night. I loved the Xfinity package for whatever reason at the super speedways. It's really good. I guess it kind of reminds me maybe Gen 6 or
yeah.
even older, but it it races the best to me, I guess, at the moment. Not that the
Mhm.
Cup race is horrible, but to me it was the best, and I think we'll get into it. But I really like what CW is doing.
Yeah, let's actually go into that. The CW broadcast I thought was awesome. Like I was actually watching it with some non NASCAR fans. We were over at a buddy's apartment enjoying some adult beverages, and so I had the volume kind of low-ish, but I could hear it, and all the graphics they were doing. Adam Alexander was great. Jamie Mack in the booth was incredible. Who was the other guy they had in the booth?
Parker,
Parker. Yeah,
Kligerman.
I mean they were outstanding. Rest in
Adam's
peace to
awesome, man.
yeah,
He's awesome.
he's great. They did a great job. I did notice at one point in the Xfinity race before Austin Hill had his issue. Um, for the first time in one of these, I felt like the field was working really hard to get Austin Hill like away from the lead, which is really good to see because I feel like I don't know. I feel like they don't usually try too hard with that, but they were really trying to shove him out. And then what was the issue that he had, Judd? Was it some engine issue? Like I said, I was kind of watching with low volume.
I believe he lost all the rear gear oil, and it
Oh man,
started to freeze up, seize up on him.
Yeah, that's not great. But then his teammate goes ahead and um, gets the win, Jesse Love, and
Just a love.
he held everybody off there at the end. Um, Going back to the truck race real quick. Rest in peace to Parker Kligerman. I think they're going to appeal that
Ugh.
tomorrow. And on the CW broadcast, he said they have a good case to appeal. So really hope that that goes through because he definitely deserved that win, obviously. Um, but it goes to Corey Heim instead. Um, what do you guys have on that?
Yeah, it was a good race. I think. I watched. I believe I watched all of that race. It wasn't like crazy exciting, but it was good. Those trucks. I get so nervous sometimes. Those trucks
Yeah,
get such huge runs, and there's a lot of times that pushes happen, and it looks like the pushes can't be handled. The cars are just wiggling all over the place, almost like the next gens, kind of where you see some of these pushes, and you're like, oh God, is that too much? And then
yeah,
everything works out okay, but yeah, it was. I thought it was a good race. It was enjoyable. It was good. It was a good start to the weekend of racing for sure. A good way to kind of kick it off. And yeah, I'm with you on the fact that, man, I feel for Parker. I hate that that's how that ended for him. After our second car celebrating when
yeah.
you know he didn't actually win on the weekend, so
Yeah.
you hate to see that, but
I don't know what it is with those trucks, but they get really, really loose or tight or whatever off of four there. Just when it drops out, saw a couple guys just spin off
Yeah,
of four and hit the inside wall.
that was interesting. We had some self spins there in the truck series, and I don't know if you put all the cup guys in the trucks, are they doing that? Is that inexperience? Is it just how the truck is?
yeah,
I mean, I don't know, but um,
yeah.
yeah, those
Well, and
two.
then go ahead.
I was gonna say those two races were good. I mean, um, I think both ended under caution. Am I right about that?
I don't know about the Xfinity race, but I think the truck race was one of those
Okay.
caution as we come off four type of
Yeah.
deals. Um, and then if we're gonna move on to the cup here, I
Yeah.
think it's only right we start Thursday night with the duels. Obviously we had prefaced qualifying on our last episode here. That went well, and then the duels, I think were pretty entertaining.
Yeah.
The first one was crazy. It was the longest 60 lap race I think I've ever seen.
Right.
And there were incidents. There were these debris cautions that just kind of happened where I think there were like 3 or 4 times over the course of the weekend between the duels and the Daytona 500. There was like 3 or 4 debris cautions where we didn't see said debris,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and it's just like one of them saved Joey Logano's night until he decided to ruin his own night. But
Yeah.
like some rogue debris cautions. I don't know if it was trash that they didn't want to just show that like a plastic bag was the reason this came out. I don't know,
Right.
but there were some rogue debris cautions, and I think there were a couple of them in that first duel during all that chaos. But it wound up being a pretty good finish once they got things sorted out. I think it was definitely the more entertaining of the two duels. The first one,
Definitely.
Bubba Wallace holding off a 3 wide charge of everybody up there to go win the duel, which was good for him. We all know he's a good plate racer, and he was exactly where he needed to be to win that duel.
Yeah, I blame Chandler Smith for all the problems in Duel One, even though he only caused the first one. But and then all
Well,
the
Judd, his
cars that.
mirrors weren't working. Okay,
Well, that's true. Anyway, and then he did the same, or did
apparently his
some.
headset wasn't working either. He couldn't hear his spotter. Yeah,
All the problems that Duel One started with, like with brakes not working.
yeah.
Where we have 2, 3 guys that
Oh,
had to come down before the green.
speaking of breaks, I know we're on the cup race, but I don't want to miss this. In the Xfinity race,
Oh goodness.
what's that guy's name? Chris Wright?
Chris Wright.
Yeah.
With the
Yep.
spotter issue apparently or whatever the hell he was talking about. I mean, have you ever seen anything like that in an actual
No.
like not an iRacing? I mean, that's like a that reminded me of like Be Fixed, at Daytona.
Yeah,
The
or
only
that
thing I
reminded
can.
me of, like, our practices where,
Yeah.
like, Austin's just bored and wants to hit someone, like,
Right.
that's what it looked like, it
The
was
only
just it
thing I
was
could like related to would be I think '07 when Blaney went down pit road, but no one was pitting. It was just him avoiding a wreck, I think,
Yeah.
and then came out the other side and I think hit somebody. But yeah, that was crazy. And then another no brakes thing in the truck race was Tony taking out two trucks and one
Oh,
checkup.
yeah.
Yeah, I think her brakes worked, but she just didn't hit them there. Yeah.
It
That'll
didn't
do.
work,
That'll
or
do it.
she didn't use them.
Yeah.
Either way.
Yeah. I think I'm going to take the second one on that
Yeah.
for
So,
sure.
not to go back to that, but we can get back to the cup.
Yeah, we'll pick up where we left off. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anything else in Duel One? I mean, yeah, the Chandler Smith thing was pretty shocking. I mean, I don't.
Had a big hit, man.
Yeah, huge
Jeez.
hit, and then Haley got caught. He got tagged after the fact, and he had a pretty big
Yeah.
hit too. Oh, and then that
And
was
then
the one
and
where,
then Elio
yeah,
took a big
Yeah,
hit as well. That guy had a
yeah,
tough
Elio
and then
weekend. I
Elio
tell you
took a
Elio's
what.
big hit,
problems.
and then he was damaged, and then I mean, it looked like me in Carb Cup when I'm home from after the bar,
Yeah.
over there in turn three. I mean,
Yeah,
just that was pretty kind of an embarrassing moment. I feel like for a guy of his caliber,
and
Yeah. It
then
was it was unfortunate, to be honest. Tough weekend for him.
definitely.
I, I want to shout out Justin Allgaier. He was doing everything to make that race and finally made it work there at the
Yeah,
end.
that was
Yeah, and
incredible
it
to
was cool to
watch.
see it just a good, I mean, two good stories. At least we had two good stories from Duel 1 with the way Duel 2 ended, but the Bubba win and the Simba moment in the victory lane with his baby.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So not only do you have a feel good Bubba win, but you have Justin Allgaier making the race for Junior Motorsports. There's that clip of them in the media center afterwards, and you got Bubba hugging Dale and Justin, and they were all everybody was just in great spirits. So yeah, Duel 1 at the very end, even though it was a bit of a mess, at the very end it turned out a couple feel good stories there.
definitely. Yeah, and I enjoyed Duel One a little bit more than Duel Two. I don't know if y'all saw that clip of Bubba giving MJ the trophy. That was pretty cool as well.
Yeah, yeah, you love to see that.
Yeah,
Like that guy needs more trophies. Yeah.
right.
yeah, right.
um,
Um,
and then Duel
Duel
Two.
2,
Yeah, go
a lot
ahead.
more tame, right? A lot more
Yeah,
calm.
a lot more calm. I guess I preferred the racing in Duel 2, but I preferred the outcome in Duel 1. But
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like
yeah.
that's how these things usually go. Like, whichever, if Duel 1 is crazy, Duel 2 is a little bit more calm. If Duel 1's calm, Duel 2, these guys get off the
That's a
rocker a little
that's a
bit.
good point.
and
Um,
going
Yeah,
into it, I thought Duel 2 was going to be the crazy one because you looked at all the guys that were in Duel 2 with like John Hunter Nemechek and Suarez,
yeah,
Christopher Bell, a bunch of the guys you think are going to cause a wreck or
yeah. Yeah, but it was, I think it was good. Obviously, much more tame. I believe there was some like green flags, like pit stops in Duel 2, and I think that was the
yeah,
only
there
green
was.
flag pit stops we saw with the Cup cars all weekend.
yeah, which yeah,
Oh
we can
yeah, I
get
guess
into
it
that
was
when we get
because
to
of
the
the
500.
yeah,
But
because of
Yeah,
all the
but
debris stuff.
and then obviously the finish. I mean, everybody's talked about it. I don't think we need to talk too much about it, but the finish, the caution
Ridiculous.
coming out 100 feet before the line, right before the wreck happen, or like the second the wreck happens. It's the reason that we got a freaking caution light in the corner of the screen as we're on the last lap. I mean, I
well,
can't
hell,
believe that's a
off
thing.
of
Like
four
it's
of coming to white flag, we get it.
Yeah, it's wild that that's a thing now. But I guess hey, whatever. If it helps clear some things up, it's great. I don't think it's gonna help me if I'm watching and there's a wreck and the caution light comes on. I'm not gonna be able to be like, oh, you know what? Thank goodness that caution light was on the screen because now
Well,
I know exactly who was ahead when it happened.
yeah, and then they had it on the screen, and then they call the finish, and they say, Eric Jones won. But why do we even have the caution light if they're not gonna allude to it?
Right.
Like
And I
you
think
have the replay and stuff. I mean, I understand right off the bat calling Eric Jones the winner because it was confusing, but we probably went 5, 6, 7 minutes thinking Eric Jones was a winner. Like, why are y'all not reviewing that and showing us? Why do we even have
Yeah,
the graphic? We know the caution came
yeah,
out, right? So
right.
I don't know.
yeah. So questionable finish there. Austin Cindric winds up winning a good Thursday night for my fandom in NASCAR with the
Right.
two of the guys I currently am pulling for
Yeah,
winning. But yeah, um, you know, whatever. I guess Corey LaJoy made the race from that. he ran a good duel.
Yeah, he
Definitely,
looked
yeah.
really good, and
Yep. So, the duels were the duels, and then Sunday morning we wake up. It's a beautiful day. Race got moved up to 1:30 to try and account for some rain.
then
How
the
did that
rain
work?
just the rain
Yeah.
just followed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did we get? We get 9 or 10 laps before the first rainstorm hit.
I think
Yep.
they called the caution on 9 and parked the cars on 11.
Yep. That checks out.
The
And then we didn't get racing again until like 6:30.
the pre-race I thought was awesome for the Daytona 500. I mean, other than the
Yeah.
fact that it was
Is
2 hours and then we get 10 minutes of post-race, but uh, in
yes.
any case, the the Air Force One flying low level over the speedway was like one of my moments of the weekend. That was so cool. Um,
Yeah, it was
I
pretty
got to
wild.
go a little bit av geek on y'all here a little bit, but um, that was sick.
Yeah, and for me, it's always the Thunderbirds that are the
Yeah, that was great
stars of
too.
the show.
That
Before
was
that,
great
I mean,
too.
it was cool when I got to go in 2022 to see that in person. Was pretty amazing, and man, they really buzzed the tower and those
Yeah,
grandstands,
yeah, they
showing
do.
off. I'm sure they didn't do as much as they normally would with the weather looming. For
Hmm.
me, I was kind of like I did see them flying around a bit after the anthem and everything, and I'm thinking to myself, well, if they're still flying around, like maybe that's a good sign about this rain. Like I feel like they would pull them in if there was really some rain nearby, or they would just do one quick flyover and then land. But they were kind of still flying around. I'm like, okay, maybe this is a good sign, and I was wrong.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. Long rain delay. We got some Wreckfest in during the rain delay, which I was happy about.
Yes.
So
Very, very crucial
that
rain
should
delay.
be a thing we do during rain delays. I mean, that was a great way
Yeah.
to spend the time and just wait. But yeah, how long was that? Was like a what, five
I
hour
feel
rain
like we
delay or
didn't.
something?
Yeah, I don't
Uh,
think I don't think we got race until like 6:30 or so. No.
Yeah,
yeah, I think that's right. So it would have been what 3 hours, 4 hours.
Yeah.
something
Lengthy.
like that.
Very lengthy.
Of course, then they got them started and then had to park for another 20 minutes. But
That was
Yeah, that was depressing because I always get fired up. I'm like, all right, we're back. We're sitting there talking about it as we're Wreckfest and drivers back in their cars. Here we go. We're getting ready. 10 minutes, and then we all hop back in to go watch the race, only to have another delay. But that one wasn't as bad. It wasn't as long. So they got racing fairly soon after that. And then it was showtime finally.
yeah.
You know,
Under the
um,
lights, prime time.
right? I do miss a nice 5:30 finish of the Daytona 500, but I
yeah,
don't mind
Zigak.
nighttime. It's
Yeah,
I
we've
miss
just
the golden hour finishes.
been getting really unlucky with the weather these past few years. I mean, we've had some Monday 500s and a lot of night finishes. So um,
I think
Yeah.
I think the last like 5:30, 6 o'clock finish was 2017.
yeah,
Wow.
and I think
Yeah, and
that's
had that
honestly
had that
because of
moving
rain.
up. Yeah, and had that moving up to 1:30 taken place, I think we would have seen one of those for sure. Had
Yeah, I
that
was
had the rain not happen.
Yeah,
when they announced it. Was it Friday? I think they
Yeah.
announced it like 2 days early. I was like, "Ooh, man, if we could get it in, we might have one of those long shadows."
Nice dusk little golden hour finish, right?
yeah,
Um, so I had noted on here stage one, we had some cautions. Those cautions turned out to be kind of a good thing because we
yeah,
saw already on like lap three that that guys were like 60% throttle saving fuel
Yeah,
already on lap three. The stage one cautions negated some fuel saving. And just, one of the things that I noted on here was just like, I know that there's nothing we can do to get these guys to not save fuel because it's all analytics and,
right.
crew chiefs are smart nowadays, right? It's just going to happen. But, my only thought of a way to mess with it is to change some stage lengths or something so that, these guys, I don't know, that you just want to see guys going 100%,
Right.
for the entirety of the racing, and I don't know what they can do to kind of change that. I don't think they're going to completely eliminate it, but I will say I much prefer, if we're going to save fuel, give me three wide racing where we're saving fuel
yeah.
versus
Right.
single car taking off laps, running the high line. You got 25 cars in a row. I will take that three wide stuff over that any day of the week.
That was something that Gluck brought up on their podcast. Like, you know, yes, they're saving fuel and they're three wide at 60% throttle, but that is much better than the single file, stuff they used to do. And it's the same thing,
Right.
right? They
Yeah.
were just taking off laps and saving fuel. Not to the extent they are now, but um, we got to tick off some laps in these races, and if they're three
Right.
wide like
Yeah.
that, I do prefer that over the train on the top.
It's visually more appealing for sure.
Yes.
I
And
think even if you change the stage lengths, I think you're still going to have guys that save so they can
you're right.
go to the
You know,
front during the pit stop. So
Yeah,
yeah. And I think a big thing also in talking about the three wide thing that they talked about on Teardown was, that's your casual fan is who's
right.
going to really like that. We know what's going on because we're diehards and we know that they're 60% hanging on to fuel saving and whatnot. And we might not like it as much, but your casual person flipping through that, checks into the Daytona 500 just because and sees 10 rows deep of three wide, they're going to be like, holy shit, this
Yeah,
is like, this is crazy. Like, what is this? And then, it might keep them hooked. You never know. So,
right.
I think it sounds like the consensus with us is if we're going to fuel save, doing it full wide or three wide is a lot cooler than single car trains,
Yeah.
no one making moves, whatever.
also, I mean, the fuel saving stuff, when the next gen came out and they really started doing it, it got on my nerves so much. But at this point, like thinking about it, it is like that is strategy, that is racing. They're not just
Yeah, I get
they're
it.
not just
Yep.
doing it for fun. Like you think about the Indy 500, they save fuel in the Indy 500. I mean,
Yep.
it's a big race and they do it at all the super speedways, but it's not. I at first I thought it was a gimmick, but now I don't really think it's a gimmick. I think it's just where we're at. It's where we've evolved to, and you never know where it's gonna go from here. But yeah, I mean, like we said, at least they're not single file around the top. That's the worst case.
I think my
Yeah.
biggest gripe with it is that's the only time it seems like they go three wide is when they're saving fuel. I wish they
Yeah.
could go three wide when they're not saving fuel, but and
Yeah, I get that.
I will
and
say on that topic, sorry to cut you off, Judd, but the third lane in Duel One actually worked with Allgaier.
Yes.
That was so
Yes.
shocking to me. Because like you said, they don't really go three wide, but they were able to get that top line working in the first duel, which I thought was a great sign. And I don't know if we really ever saw it again, but um, yeah, Allgaier, they were able to make that third lane work.
Well, and I thought it was very interesting in the race itself because the third lane would work sometimes and sometimes it would not. And they always say it on TV, but your lane is really determined by the second car in line and who's pushing and how well they're pushing. And so you would see some guys go up on that third lane, and my focus immediately shifted to who was second in line and who was pushing.
or
I
even
believe
third.
like Chastain. Yeah, I know Chastain went to do it early and lost a ton of spots, which then resulted in him getting booted out of the race. But like towards the end, we started to see, the third lane was able to kind of work even when these guys were going all out and they weren't saving fuel. It was able to get going and to work, which I think is a positive. I think having
Yeah,
that third lane available is huge in this car and in this package where track position is so important. The third lane just kind of opens up the ability for people to move through the field like we're used to. So, I enjoy that for that aspect, and I think I said it last week, but I'll say it again that I think they've come a long way with the super speedway package, and it's in a good spot right now. Other than it's hard to make moves and charge through the field, but some guys can do it. I think we saw Logano do it when he had to go from the back. Kyle Busch had a run where he was gaining a lot of positions through
yeah,
the field. So you can still do it. It's just not like the old days where you can just carve from the back to the
Right.
front, you know, so easily.
And even then, that was few and far between. Sometimes you still had to be pretty methodical. But one thing I wanted to note during the second duel race, I thought I could tell they were going slower, but then during the race, I couldn't. And Fox
yeah.
put up a couple graphic when they were three wide, and they were still doing 195. So I don't know if that's true or not. I guess I don't know if they were doing that.
That is a
But
good point.
yeah,
Yeah, even when they were three wide fuel saving, the speeds were high. So I wonder. I mean, that would be such a Fox thing to do, to like lie on the speed. You know what I mean? But I
just
mean,
add 20 miles an hour.
I don't know if we can really. accuse them of that, but also
Yeah,
if that came
I'm
out, I
staying out
would
of that one.
not be surprised at all. You know?
I'm
I'll
staying
go
out of
there.
that
I'll
one.
be the guy that goes full
I
conspiracy
like it.
theory,
I like it.
tinfoil hat.
I had not even thought of
Um,
that. I was surprised when I saw the graphic. I'm like, oh, well, they're still going like 190. Like, are they not? Because usually aren't they going like 170 or something when they're fuel saving? Like, it's ridiculously slow.
yeah,
Right,
there's
and I
some,
guess I did,
I've seen it in the 80s sometimes, but
Yeah.
you know,
and of course I didn't
um,
have the NASCAR app up to like check lap speeds to see if it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think a couple more things to cover here. I noted on here like just the Penske dominance early. Cindric
Yeah,
and
they were
Logano
fast.
worked so well together for most of the race.
Yeah, all those Penske
You know,
cars.
I'm still waiting on the world to give Austin Cindric credit for being a great plate racer because
Oh, he
he's
is.
ever since he's gotten here,
He is
he's
in
just
my
been
mind.
he is in my mind too. He's been just so good on those tracks since he got here, and even Atlanta he's good at, which is, you know, in
Yeah,
my mind, you know, more of a you got to have more super speedway racing skill at Atlanta, I think, than Daytona nowadays. So, um, you know, those guys were fast. Blaney, Logano, Cindric were up front. It felt like the entire race, and Cindric was in a really good spot coming on the backstretch on the last lap, and unfortunately got caught up in that wreck. But you know, two of the Penske cars still finished 7-8. You know, Blaney and Cindric, and obviously Logano got
yeah,
involved in a wreck and he was out. So,
Yeah.
but just
yeah.
Speaking of
Penske
that
dominance on
Logano,
super speedways.
yeah, they're definitely fast. Speaking of the Logano wreck, what was y'all's take on that? I felt like the internet was kind of split 50-50 on blaming Stenhouse versus Logano.
I think that's where I'm at. I'm 50-50 on both of them. It's two guys that are aggressive as hell going for one tiny little spot, and
Yeah.
Hmm.
they just wrecked each other basically.
Yeah, I think I said it during the race that it was like, you know, um, the first kind of block that like for me it's like 60-40. I'll give it, you know, 60% Ricky, 40% Joey, for my blame game. I think Ricky made the first block was an okay block, and then he just kind of kept coming down. And I think Joey, being Joey, was kind of like, no, like if you
Yeah.
leave a room, if you leave a room, I'm going for it.
Yeah.
And so it's two guys who will take any gap that exists, you know, going for the same thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, I understand Ricky with his block, trying to hold his position, trying to make his move. I also understand Joey trying to get in that gap after being blocked, and then his ability to lift and get out of there is you're in a tough spot at that point, right? Because he's got Noah up his ass and guys right behind Noah pushing that entire line. So I think that's just tough for,
Right.
you know, it was a tough situation, but you know,
And then it doesn't help Ricky. It almost looked like Ricky wanted to go back to the top and then changed his mind, and
Yeah.
then Logano went for the gap that he opened.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's where Ricky gets the 60% for me. That extra 10% goes to Ricky because of that.
I
You know,
thought
that
it was
little
a
late
case
kind of
of
indecisiveness.
yeah. I think they were both just being so stubborn. I mean, like you guys said, like um Ricky didn't want to give it up and Logano wanted to get to his inside and both of them were just going to do what they were going to do to make that happen and hope the other one
Yeah.
backed out and they didn't. Um Super unnecessary wreck, especially for Logano because I felt like I mean, I know Cindric had a really fast car, but I felt like for me Logano had the best car throughout that
Yeah.
race, and there's 15 to go. You're already in, third on the top line or fourth, whatever he was. I mean, he's made his way back up twice after his issues, and it's like Kyle Busch said in his interview. It's like, well, it looks like the fastest car in the race got in a hurry to get taken out because
Yeah.
um, if he was just a little bit more patient and a little bit less stubborn with that move, and it's a good point about Noah being right behind him. Like if he lifts, he's probably going to get ran over, but um, he went for the move in the first place, and it's like from Joey's perspective, that's not the best course of action. I feel like for his own race, not to
Yeah.
mention that all the other cars that got caught up in it. So
And that was what, 15, 17 to
I
go?
think so, yeah,
Somewhere around there. Yeah.
As much as it doesn't feel like it, you still have time.
yeah, exactly. And
So
Joey
then
is good enough to know that as well. Like this is not
yeah.
his first rodeo. Like I feel like he should have that patience at this point, but both of them, Stenhouse too. I mean, well,
Yeah.
Stenhouse is in a little bit of a different scenario. His car definitely was not as fast as Logano's, so he needed to cover it off. But because if he lets Logano in there, to the inside, he's done because he's going to be up in that top lane, and he's probably not getting back to the front. So
Yeah.
Hind,
And then
hind,
so Ed, go ahead, Judd.
hindsight 2020. I mean, the Fords are the best pushers every damn time we go to a super speedway, and Joey's
Hmm.
in one of the best cars every time we go to a super speedway. Why not just push Ricky up there and go race for the win 10
yeah,
laps later?
yeah,
Exactly. So that incident happens. Then we start taking off towards the end here. Then we have the Ryan Priest crash, big crash.
oh
Obviously, again, everybody's
Good
talked about it.
gravy.
My thoughts on that were this craziness. It was wild to see the car do that. I saw an interesting point online that I'd like to point out that someone mentioned when there was that Jeff Bodine incident. I believe it was in the late '90s, maybe the early
yeah,
2000s, where Bodine
The
went up into the
truck
fence
race?
at Talladega. Yeah, the truck race. They After that they instituted these things that I think they call Bodine bars on the trucks, which basically prevent wheel hops like we saw. So if you think back to the Clash, Ty Gibbs goes to hit Justin Haley out of frustration and
yep,
launches his car into the air from wheel to wheel contact. And then if you look at the
Oh,
wreck with Priest, also wheel to wheel contact with Eric Jones, almost IndyCar like with the way the wheels
yeah,
launch these cars into the air. Someone pointed out with the Bodine bars, would that be something that they can consider adding to the next gen cars? Personally, I think something like that is a great idea, something to kind of keep the cars from doing that because it's not the first time we've seen wheel to wheel contact kind of make a car hop into the air. And then, you see Priest with that front end up, all that air getting under the car. And then I'm the only one that has the take of once that roof flap comes up on the back as his car's sideways, that's what instigated the flip. And I'm going to die on that hill. If you watch the timing of it, the second that flap gets all the way open is when the car starts to flip. So the flap that normally keeps the car on the ground while it's spinning backwards kind of had a little opposite effect there, and created like an extra spoiler to flip that car over. It was in the air. It was already such a delicate car, and just
yeah,
one little thing it took it to launch it over. So that was crazy.
so
yep,
in theory, I like the Bodine bar. I don't know what the underpinnings and chassis of the
Yeah,
Gen 7 is,
agreed.
but um, it'll be interesting to see what NASCAR finds when they do review Priest's car. I don't know, is that this week or next week? Have they said?
I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. I do not know. I know that they're definitely probably going to look into it, but I don't
Well,
know
I think
what that
before
entails.
everyone left Daytona, they already said we're going to RFK and we're going to go look at that car. But
Yeah.
well, yeah. I mean, just an insane incident. Like I literally jumped out of my chair when I saw that because I mean we've never really seen a car take off like on from the front like that.
yeah,
And
take
then he
off like
Yeah.
an
gets
aeroplane.
yeah, and then he gets turned sideways, and we've seen cars flip, but he was already 5 or 10 feet off the ground before he actually flipped
It was
over.
wild.
I mean, just a
Wild.
crazy incident. And then the hits, once he came back down on all four, there on the banking, that was really
Yeah.
crazy.
Backed it into the wall. Yeah,
I'm sure it
it
was
was
pretty
wild to
painful.
watch.
And then his interview
Um,
afterwards, where he's talking about all I could think about was my daughter when I went up in the air. I mean, that definitely gave me chills when he said that.
Right.
Yeah, Priest and Daytona just haven't had a good history over the last couple of years, and then
Yeah, you can throw Dega in there too with
Yeah,
his
with the Larson
big
thing.
slam in the Larson.
yeah, so so that happens. Now we're inching closer to the finish. We get our overtime finish. We have another wreck on the backstretch. Cole Custer getting into Cindric and Denny.
Custer
Um,
definitely caused the priest one too, right?
Yeah, I
Uh,
think I think
Because
he was
he,
in a tough I think he was in a tough spot just because he was trying to push Bell.
yeah,
Bell wasn't necessarily staying as straight as possible. Bell was kind
yep,
of
right.
moving around a
he
little
was
bit.
having
So
that
Well,
issue all race.
I
yeah, I
think
can't fully blame Custer on the first one. The second one I can.
Yeah,
Um,
might
just kind
might
of
want
a
to
bad
blame
block.
Custer Spotter.
Yeah, yeah. To me the second one was very reminiscent of the Stenhouse and Logano incident. It was just Custer and Briscoe, but I think Custer was at a lot more fault in this wreck than Stenhouse was in that first one.
yeah,
Um,
I agree.
Right.
but yeah, that happens, and we're all sitting there. All three of us, I think I can speak for all three of us and say that we're just thinking, well, here comes the caution. William Byron wins. We don't get a caution, and they
Yeah,
let him run back to the line after, we see what happened on Thursday. So, kind of an interesting thing there to keep an eye on going forward when it comes to consistency of calling these
Right.
kinds of things.
I think Denny said it right. Like after everyone was beating NASCAR up from Thursday to Sunday morning about it, I think we all should have expected them not to throw it, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
they
didn't even
basically
think
got
about it.
bullied into that. I mean,
Yes, I agree. And I mean, look at a track like that where the cars have plenty of time. If the wrecks in three or four are on the backstretch, the cars after the caution or after the checker do have plenty of time to get slowed down. Obviously, you don't want to send trucks out on the track while cars are still out there. But I think if there was an exception, I think Daytona is a place to do it if the wreck is in a specific spot, right? I think that kind of exception needs to happen
Right.
only there at a place where you're not going to do this at Richmond if a wreck happens in the backstretch of Richmond. The
No.
yeah,
cars are still going to be going full speed, shortly after crossing the start finish line, right? So, or like a Vegas or Kansas or something like that, right? Like a wreck on the backstretch like that, you're going to go
Or
ahead
the
and throw the
ARCA race.
caution. Yeah, yeah, right. You're gonna throw that caution. You're gonna end the race, right? So,
Yeah.
um, you know, but I think it's gonna be cool, interesting just to watch the consistency. I think we'll get another possible situation like that this week at Atlanta. So,
yeah.
um, you know, but
Uh, I got a couple more
D-
notes for the
yeah,
Daytona 500. Elio's weekend was absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
poor
I mean, I guess
guy.
he finished well in the ARCA race, and then that guy takes him out. But
Yeah, he
it's
took a lot of hits, a lot of big hits this weekend.
I, I wrote it down on my notes. He just needs to call it a career, but
Yeah,
not really because he's that
that's.
great. But
I think he's going to want to come back and try that again. I don't think he was satisfied with his Daytona
Yeah.
performance, so I wouldn't be surprised to
uh,
see him come back and do it again.
I wouldn't be.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I think that's important. I think he wants to do better than that. I think he
I think
knows
he
he can.
said in his interview he wants to try a road course as well, so that'll definitely be
Now
fun
that
to
would be
That'd be
watch.
fun.
good.
I
Yeah,
think he'd do well.
yeah,
Another note from this 500. After all the pre replays, I felt bad for Kevin's back. He kept talking about
Yeah.
how bad the landing on all four is for your back. I'm like, oh great, Kevin's back's fucked up. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That checks out there. Yeah. So then the last little note that I have here is just a question for you guys. Was it a good 500? What'd you think? Yes or no?
I think so. I mean, I was entertained throughout it. And I went in with pretty low expectations based on how those super speedways have been. But there's kind of a meme on the internet is like all that for a Byron win. Like he's not the
Yeah,
most exciting winner, I feel like, although it did help that that paint scheme was absolutely beautiful. I will say that.
and back to back. Pretty
Yeah,
impressive.
definitely.
yeah,
It is impressive, but also it's like Denny was talking about this on his show. It's like we want to be able to see a guy like make a move and say, "I made that move to win," you know.
Yeah,
And I think that's
yeah,
the bummer of the super speedways right now is like Byron didn't make a move to win. Like he was just in his
yep,
lane driving straight. He got lucky to get around the wreck and he won the race. And that's not to take anything away from him. It's not his fault, but um you don't get those moments on Daytona anymore. Like I just watched the finish to the I think it was the 2007 race where Harvick won over Mark Martin, right?
correct.
And you can see the moment where Harvick makes the move to win. There was an overtime or green white checkered or whatever it was, and he moves up to the top lane, gets pushed, gets around Mark in turn 3, gets him a little bit loose, and then he goes up and wins the race. And there was absolutely zero luck involved in that. And you can
yeah,
or like when Hamlin won his first one against Truex, you can see the move he makes to win, or the 2021
yep,
as well. You can see the move he
yep.
makes to win, and we just don't really get that anymore. So, other than that bummer of a situation that can't really be fixed, I don't think at this moment in time. I thought it was a good race. I mean, I was thoroughly entertained throughout it.
Judd, yes or no?
I'm a little bit on the fence, but I'm gonna lean. It was a good race. It was a good race. The finish is murky, obviously, but
Yeah.
looking at my notes here, there's only been four in the last 20 years that weren't a green white checkered finish.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's
And then I guess if you want to add a fifth one, but that one's rain shortened.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just I think it's where we're at with this race.
Yeah, and that doesn't specifically say that. That's a stat that kind of tells you it's not 100% next gen car. It's kind of just super speedway racing in general over the last 20 years. The fact that
Yeah.
people are aggressive and shit happens, right? So the
Yeah.
fact that it's happened over multiple generations of and packages of cars kind of tells you that this is just the nature of the beast, right? It's just kind of what we have all grown to kind of expect, and we're used to. For me personally, I think it was a good race as well. I enjoyed it. It was a long day. When you start drinking at 1 o'clock, thinking that you're going to watch the race and be done by 5, and then you got to keep it going. I mean, what was I going to do? Just stop?
Right.
Right.
So it's a bit of a long day in that aspect, but all in all, I think it's a successful weekend, and I'm excited for next week. I think it's gonna be fun.
That is one
Yep.
thing I do kind of enjoy about a rain delay though, is that you kind of get bonus beers, waiting around.
Yeah,
I don't know.
exactly.
I don't know.
And what
Um,
and what they did with the, I know we were doing Wreckfest during the rain delay, but for most of it, they were talking to drivers or crew chiefs,
Yeah.
car owners.
yeah, I heard the rain delay coverage was pretty good. Like I said, we were a little focused on something else, but from what I saw on social media, the rain delay coverage was really good. So that's good that they were able to fill that time, and they didn't, like, it seems like they didn't cut to showing last year's race until quite a ways into the rain delay.
Yeah.
Well, and
Normally
then
it's
like
just like 10 minutes, and then they're just like, well, here's a race from last
right,
year. Yeah.
um, I think they announced like drivers to their cars in like 30 minutes, and that's when Fox decided we'll show some of the race from last
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's exciting, and well, I think we'll have a lot to talk about next week too with Atlanta. Um,
Yeah. Do we want to quickly just touch on Atlanta?
Hopefully, because I have some stats I got here
Okay, go ahead,
on a
Judd.
notepad. So the people that you're probably going to want to look for are the three people in the finish a year ago: Blaney, Suarez, Kyle
Right.
Busch. Some other guys to look for is Cindric, Byron Elliott, Logano, and Ross Chastain.
hmm. I think I said this earlier, I'll double down on this take. Right now, when it comes to super speedway package style racing, I think Atlanta is the place where you know they talk about back in the day guys who were very skilled on super speedways. I think this is where it's shown off, where you have to have super speedway racing skill at this track versus a Talladega or a Daytona
Yeah.
nowadays, just because of what this track entails and the chaos that it is, and how quickly things happen, and people need to make moves and do things to react. So um, I'm excited. I love this track ever since they made the change. I don't think we need more of them,
Yeah.
NASCAR, but I think they nailed it here. It's awesome.
I think
And
they might do that to Texas, but
I've been
You
hearing
know
the
what? I'd be
drivers.
okay with that. Yeah, just one more. That's it.
yeah. Um, yeah, I'm excited for Atlanta more so than I feel like I have been recently because all the drivers are talking about how much it's aging, how quickly it's aging. I don't know if that's just the type of pavement they use or the weather in Georgia. I guess it gets pretty hot and cold. So
Absolutely.
whatever it is, it's aging a lot, and yeah, I think it's gonna be. I think like you said, old-fashioned super speedway skill is gonna come into it because I think it's gonna be less of kind of how it was the first couple of years where it's like three wide most of the time and super aggressive. I think handling's really going to come into play. And I think Bubba said it on DBC. I might be wrong about that. It was maybe somebody else, but they were saying like we should have practice at Atlanta because of how much it's aging and how much handling matters. So
Yeah.
that did get me excited.
It got me excited for in like 5 years. Do we have to change the cup package when we go there or
Yeah,
not?
Yeah, you're right. It'll be interesting. I think the Xfinity will be a good tell for that. I think they're going to be the ones that kind of tell us how it's aging, because the way they race is going to be a good tell for how the track is wearing,
True.
yeah,
um, and then that will kind of set us up for what we think with the Cup. But I think I'm all good on the week. How are you guys feeling? We good? We think we cover everything?
yeah. I don't have much else other than maybe a pick to win for Atlanta. What do you
I'm gonna
guys
go
got?
Cindric.
Cindric?
I gotta stick with him. I think he's been good there in the past. He's a good super speedway racer. We already know those Penske cars have speed, so there's my pick.
I'll go with my pick from fantasy and Suarez.
Ooh, all right.
I
Yeah,
like it. He gets redemption.
I was actually gonna pick Suarez. But in that case, I'll go Corey LaJoy. No, I'm just kidding. Can you imagine? Um, I will go with a Toyota. I'll say Tyler Reddick. He finished.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Didn't he finish second in the duel? Maybe he
Yes.
was
Yeah,
up
I
there
think
in
he,
the duel, and then he's
In the
second in the
500,
five. He was second in the
yeah.
500 too. So, um, yeah, I'll go Tyler Reddick. I got a good feeling about the Toyotas this weekend.
okay.
I love it.
Interesting.
I love it.
I got a couple things before we end here. Qualifying at Daytona, I'm done with 2 rounds. I only need 1 for qualifying.
Yeah,
I'm
I
with you
agree.
on that.
And then I got Bubba and Cindric. I am looking to see what their year is this year. I'm looking for big things out of both of them.
Yeah, I think I think it's gonna be a good year for both of them, and they all got off to a good start on the duels. So
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I know I'm a little late. You guys did this for the first episode, but I think Ty Gibbs wins the Coke 600.
wow,
Oh, okay.
wow, love it.
A specific prediction there. Is that in the
Yeah,
in-season tournament?
that was one of our.
I
Oh yeah, I
don't.
Oh,
forgot
is
about
that a
Maybe.
that.
bold prediction?
Yeah, that was our bold prediction of the year that we kind of did on
Okay.
the first week.
I was
Yeah.
going to do wins the race in the first 12, but I'll just go straight to the Coke
Straight
600.
to the Coke 600. I
Okay.
like it. Well, hopefully I'm going to be there, and I'll be a little upset if I have to watch Ty Gibbs win in person, but I think I'll get over it.
I mean,
Well, I had to
that'll be
do
his
that.
first win.
Yeah, but it's it's Ty Gibbs.
Well,
I had to watch him win an Xfinity race at Road America Live. So
maybe you'll get
Well,
lucky and he'll compare himself to Jesus again, and then that'll be a
yeah,
good meme.
that's smart.
Well, yeah. Thank you guys for spending some time here. I think we had a pretty comprehensive episode here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next week we got Martinsville for CRS and Atlanta. We'll be back here next Wednesday at about the same time. So, yeah.
thanks for having
Judd,
me.
thank you for joining us, Judd. It was a good time. We'll hopefully have some periodic guests throughout the season, and you're always welcome back here when it comes time to do so.
Just let me know and I'll make some notes.
I love it.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to leave us a like on YouTube and, add the podcast to your library on Spotify. And
Give it 5 stars.
5 stars. That's right. Yeah, I should really have a script here for the outro. Maybe we'll work on that
That's
for next week.
Rated
we're
5
still-
stars or Fuller's coming to your house to take
There you
on.
go.
Yeah, I'll use my known computer skills to find people's IP address. But yeah, we'll see you guys next week.